Okay, so my name's Jamie. Welcome everyone to my talk about, well, it's going to be about AI. My name's, James Abrahams. I'm co-founder of a company called 3D Give. I've been really focusing on the AI module. I'm a co-maintainer there, and I am also on the AI track for Drupal CMS. And there's places you can see us. Yautja Satanu. I know it's a weird thing in our Drupal community that we have these usernames, and I made that when I was about 12, when I was playing video games. It's from The Predator, if you've ever seen the film Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and #AI on Slack. Yeah. So, so one thing about me is I'm actually half Singaporean. So how many people here are Singaporean in some way? Can I get a show of hands? Okay, there's a few of you. So my mum, she moved to England when she was 6, and my granddad opened the first Singaporean restaurant in London, and his sister still owns, she's not around, but her family still own a restaurant called Singapore Gardens in Swiss Cottage in London. So if you're around, you've got that. My mum tried to teach me Chinese. I know I can say no la, so I've got a little bit of Singaporean stuff. I'm a good enough Singaporean son that I've taken photos of all my meals here. This is me going to La Pasat and satay. Like, I'm just so excited. I've got pictures of bakwa, but that's one thing I don't have in England as well. So I just bought mountains of bakwa. There's some things about me that's Singaporean. There's some things that I know about Singaporeans. So it's not naturally me. But I know that you guys love acronyms. So I decided to ask AI if it could come up with some kind of Drupal AI Singaporean acronyms. So we've got DRUM, Drupal Revolutionizing User Management. La, Artificial Intelligence. I feel like it should be the other way around, like Artificial Intelligence, La. I don't know what you think about that. Kiasu, Knowledgeable, Intelligent, Automated System Utility. Shock. Smart helper integrated online for knowledge. I think it's getting a bit silly now. I like CAN. But content automation network. So here's a bunch of acronyms. And for people who aren't Singaporeans, well, just, it's something you can look up. Particularly the government, they just love loads and loads and loads of different things, so with various different acronyms. So firstly about AI. So how did I get into AI? Well, it was about a year and a half ago. A friend of mine just phoned me up and said, hey, I can build an app. I didn't know how to build an app before. And we were chatting about this thing. I thought, maybe my wife, she's in HR. She knows nothing. She doesn't know how to code. Could I just sit with her, get her to use ChatGPT and make an app? And she could. And we made this app. It's not groundbreaking. It's on my phone. You press a button and a hyena laughs. That's, it's quite simple. But she went from not being able to do it to suddenly being able to do it. And she had a real situation at work where the CSV file that got exported from some HR review software was terrible. Really hard to do any kind of analysis on it. So she had 2 people who last year they spent 3 days moving all these data around, putting it in different places to get these averages. And we managed to get AI. I did have to help her a bit, but we managed to get AI to help her write. We first started with Python, and then it wrote a Visual Basic macro, a VBA macro for Excel that moved all the data around into proper columns, and then she could just use pivot tables. And she won Employee of the Month and got a £150 bonus, and that was the first money I made with AI. So that was exciting. And I just found, at the time, I was actually a stay-at-home dad for a bit, and I would, I'm a bit nerdy, and I've got all of these different interests. Like VR was one of my things for a while, and I'll talk about it, and people will humor me. And it's been really interesting with AI that I can have this thing I want to talk to anyone ever about, and they'll like it. I'll be sitting there with the mums at these toddler groups or the pool, randomly bring up AI, and pretty much all the time, people would be interested in this thing. So. Here's some graphs about what the state of AI is at the moment. And one thing we are finding is 2023 was the year of AI as an interest. If you went to a talk about AI, the talk would be about like, I don't know, RAG or embedding models or how LLMs trained and neural networks. So everyone would be interested in just how they worked. In 2024, people started building things. Like we've seen way more people interested in actually trying to solve things. We're still in a place, I think the vast majority of AI stuff is still in the demo or about to be released phase. So I've heard some clients who have real examples of like AI revolutionizing things in the customer service network industry, which is where we are, and I'll talk a bit more about that. But we're still in a place where a lot of things are just about to really change things. But you can see here the spending in all these different areas of AI has just really gone up. These are the dominant use cases for AI. So yeah, code generation is huge. How many people here have used AI to help them write code? Yeah, I think it's such an obvious one. Like all the people making the models understand how to code because they're using that. So they've really been helping us. Have any of you tried any of the kind of like AI focused IDEs? Yeah, do you want to shout out what you've used? Like, what's that? Oh, just PHP Storm, yeah. With the Cody thing. Anyone else? Cursor, yeah. I should have prepared this, but there's one of my devs who's found one that they think was really good. But like, it does seem like that's moving forwards. Support chatbots, so sort of. We've got that with the Drupal CMS. Enterprise search and retrieval. So these are kind of areas that people are using things. Data extraction and transformation I'm finding is really powerful. Now, primary architectural approaches in 2023. So in 2023, everyone was talking about prompt engineering. That was like the big thing that you had to do. I remember I gave talks about prompt engineering. Everything's moving so fast. I gave these talks about prompt engineering with all of these like academic papers of showing how you could do this. And then within about two or 3 months, all of these prompt engineering techniques have been baked into the models, so you don't really need to do them anymore. Like the concept of prompt engineering as a thing, it used to be something where you could maybe get a job as a full-time prompt engineer. And now these things are getting so much cleverer that it's much more about describing what you want clearly than any kind of special magic with prompt engineering. Agents was not a thing 2023. It's becoming more of a thing. Fine-tuning is becoming less of a thing. So this is this sort of state where things are. The thing that we worked on is delay repay. So if your train's late, you upload a ticket of your train, and we have this whole system built in Drupal for our customer service agents to check that your ticket's valid for a journey, to see how long it will last, to calculate how delayed your train is by cross-referencing it with a big database we have for all train movements. It does fraud checking, pays you back, accounting, all of these tools. And really early on, again, over a year ago, I tried it out with ChatGPT, and it just worked pretty well. And then I built this tool, which I'll talk about later, where we could then test it against real examples. And we found it was like about 90% accurate, and when you automated 90% of them, and I think it's going to be a lot better with the new models. But I've heard there's an insurance company that uses a system of 78 agents to reduce the process of quoting from weeks to mere hours. At DrupalCon Barcelona in France, they ran a trial with, I think, 20,000 civil servants, and response times were going down from an average of 19 days to just 3 days. One of the team in our little community, he's worked with a very, very technical client, and they'll get these questions by email from clients, and it will take like a PhD or more level person in this engineering field to go and read loads and loads of technical manuals and textbooks before they can come up with an answer. And he reckons his one now, like he'll try it out, he'll get one of them to check the answer that AI is given. And he thinks it's good enough to just ship about 75% of the time. It's still not ideal, but he reckons the humans are only good about 85% of the time anyway. These aren't things where people are getting things to 100% level of accuracy. In the early days of AI, I really think a lot of programmers who kind of look down on AI would look down on the fact that it hallucinates, that you can't get things perfectly accurate, it's not deterministic. But actually in the real world, with humans doing things, we don't live in worlds of 100% accuracy, of 100% success rate. We live in a world of checks and balances, of probabilistic. We live in a world where sometimes the human staff are deliberately malicious, and they're wanting to hurt the organization or commit fraud. So the real world deals with this stuff that AI also does, and we've created systems around that. So I'm going to start in Drupal CMS. A lot of the time I've given like a more fluffy talk about AI, and I've kind of done that at the beginning. But I thought today, with Drupal CMS coming out soon, and we've already done stuff, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail of behind the scenes. Now, I'm not a programmer, so I'm not going to go into the code. But I'll talk a little bit about this chatbot. Has everyone seen the Dries note from Barcelona? Yeah. So we've got this. What you saw in Barcelona was like aspirational, and since then we've made them really work. Like they work across all the things that you might want to do with the fields and content types. And so we've made this chatbot where you can ask it to build things, and it can either help you or it can do it for you. I think one of the reasons why this is so interesting is Drupal is incredibly flexible. There's so much you can do with it, but a lot of people find it difficult to use. And AI onboarding you through this process, I think, could really help drive Drupal documentation adoption. And we have found that with some of the people we've tried it out with who don't know Drupal. They found it quite exciting that they could start having ideas and it would guide them through the process or do it for them. But what I thought I'd do is go a little bit behind the scenes and show you, and we have this, responsible AI principles is something Dries has talked about and is going to be publishing soon. But one of the things we really want to focus on is we're not using AI to replace developers, content creators, designers. That's not our main goal. There are people focusing on that. What we think is a really cool opportunity with Drupal is AI is supporting you. It's supporting the humans that are already doing things to do those things better according to what their organizations deem as better. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that's going to be very powerful, because if you think about it, however intelligent AI gets, we don't have very many systems with zero checks and balances where you simply measure someone's IQ and say, because you have a high IQ, you get access to all databases, all code, you can just do whatever you like. That's not how the real world works. And so why would it suddenly work because the super intelligent being is a computer? So I think this transparency that Drupal offers us by being able to see behind the scenes what's happening is really powerful. So just as a quick summary, I said it this morning, what is in Drupal CMS version 1? Abstraction layer. You can choose your different models that you want and different providers. Alt text generation via AI. A chatbot can answer your questions about your site, including support questions, but it's context aware. It can tell what site page you're on. It can see the content types and fields in your system. It can create links to places on your site. So it's really powerful for documentation because these things aren't something where the end user has to guess exactly what they mean, but it can actually tell you in context. But then also the AI agents can interact with the Drupal site, can change config, can create a new field, move them around, etc. We currently are supporting content types, fields, taxonomy, and a little bit of media. At Barcelona, we talked about the using AI to migrate and views, and those are coming. But what we've been focusing on, let's make these really robust. Let's get our tools so that this works well, that we know it works well, that we can test it. And well is never going to be 100%. It's never going to be perfect. It's always going to need a human to take a look and shift it around and check, are we happy with the taxonomy it's created? That's not what I mean by work well. Work well is somebody who doesn't know anything about Drupal is finding, because they use this, they find the experience better. Do they like it? Are they faster? Are they able to learn more? It's never work well as in perfect. So it's all based around the AI module, which is at project/AI, and we've got a whole bunch of tools for building AI applications in it. If we have time, I might talk about that near the end. But if you want the AI module, that's where you can find it. And the core of it is this abstraction layer that allows you to pick any model that you want, and a bunch of helper functions, logging tools, things around it that will help you do well with AI. Being able to log everything it does is very important because, with debugging, if you've got a software that goes wrong, you can usually try and reproduce the same problem on your own system. Because it's deterministic, in theory, you should be able to find it. In practice, I know it's harder than that. But with AI, the reason why it's gone wrong might be just because of something it did hallucinated that day, and you can never reproduce it. So logging is a lot more important. I mean, it's always important, but it's really important with AI. So there's all these tools to help you with around things with AI, and it makes it future-proof. It means that when there was one of the migrate agent that we showed at Barcelona. In that demo, it was working actually in real life about 10% of the time. Poor little Marcus, the developer, was like recording it and just clicking generate over and over again, fail, generate, fail, generate. And then he got one, and then that went in there, and we got to show that off at Barcelona. But then the thing is, the week before, the Friday before we left, ChatGPT released 01 preview, and he tried that out, and that suddenly was now 100%. There's all these tools we're building that even if they work only 2% of the time, you just have to wait sometimes a month, and it goes from 2% to 100%. So this thing makes us very future-proof, everything that we built there. So there's a concept of agents. Everyone's talking about that. An exact definition of an agent is not very well defined. But I really like, there's a tool which in my next slide, the OpenAI released called Swarm. And they define agents really simply. Agents are things, sometimes they call them routines, that have instructions. A list of do this, 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 and this. That's like the pre-prompt. Then they have tools, which are here. And they can actually do things. Like the tool can add a field. It can check something. And what a tool is you've got some code on your site, like a function, like, I don't know, check if, an image field is private or public. And what a tool is a little bit of stuff around it that is like an API to that function. It's just like a list of, this is the tool, this is the description, this is how you're supposed to use it, and then these are the parameters you need to put in, and then this is how I'm going to give you a response. And if you write these tools with all of your functions, and you give them to these agents, then you can suddenly make it do anything that you want on Drupal. But because these tools are things that we've written, we can make them safe. It's not these AI agents are going around writing raw code, writing SQL and accessing your database. It's going through these tools, which means we can do things like make it respect your permissions. We can make sure that it only implements things in a proper way, that things are validated before they go in, that things are logged properly. So agents are just instructions and tools. I tend to think agents, they have a bit more autonomy, and they can decide which of the tools they want to use. We have something else called automators, and they are like agents, but they only have one tool. They always do this. They have a single prompt, and they have a single tool, and they'll always do that. And they live in a chain. Agents get to choose a little bit. And then there's another kind of special tool called a handover tool. And this is where the agent can hand over to another agent the task. So you might get a project manager. Well, we'll move on to this slide. So this is Swarm that I was talking about. It's an educational framework. It's not for production, but it's something OpenAI released to show you how agents can work. And this is one that they've got for weather. So somebody asked, what's weather in New York? And the first agent is a triage agent. It's like a project manager. It looks at your question and goes, how am I going to solve this? And then it figures out which of the agents it should do, maybe like a whole series of tasks, and it passes them on. So it's using this one here, transfer to weather assistant, which is a handover tool. But the weather assistant is able to actually get the weather in New York City and find out 67, and then give a response to the end user. So I'm going to show a little video. How many people have already seen this? This is my Doodle to web form video. Has anyone seen this already? Okay, a couple of people. So this is one of the earliest demos we made. And we had this agent that we were working with web form, and we thought, well, some people struggle with the web form UI. I know they put a lot of effort into it, but any new UI is complicated. So what if you just drew it, just on a piece of paper? And it's really rough. Dietary restrictions just says choice 1, 2, it's all over the place. And one of the early UIs that Marcus was working on is this thing he called Mini Kanban. It's kind of looking similar to a Kanban. You create an epic, and you say, I want to create this web form. I'm going to make it to do, assign it to the AI agent, and I describe it, and then add up the image. And then what you're going to see here is, the first thing that happened was, this is the project manager agent, create a web form. It's got the task that you set it. And it knows all the agents it's allowed to use on a site. So it decides to create a route, a scheme of how these agents are going to work, where this one here has the ability to look at images. Now, all the LLMs can do that now. It's a while ago. It can look at an image and describe what it sees. And it's also trained. It's not properly trained. It's just in the prompt. But it's trained to like read forms and describe it in a way that web form can get. But it's still just language. It's not doing anything like anything code related. So this one looks at it, describes it. And you can see it's in progress, but this one's blocked. Until I've got the description, it can't do it. This agent here has the ability to actually build things in web form. So it has those tools that can actually implement those things. And so it will get a natural language description of a form and then write to all the different actions, implement this field, implement this field. Apologies about the dancing letters. We've got a little bit better at our marketing and making videos since then. And because it's this agent, it can describe in natural language like it was in an issue queue, what it's done. It gives you links to everything. It tells you where it is. You can also create a comment. Like if it's confused, it can ask you a question, like, how do I deal with this? It could assign things to a human. You can have a blend of AI agents and humans working together to achieve something. And all something that project managers, content editors, etc. can interact with. And then you see the field here, and this is real web form content. It's not writing a demo of web form. It's not writing pure code. It implements the web form. It will work with everything. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, well done, AI. Yeah, we're obsessed with AI. I mean, I really, really am. Like, I'm so tired because I woke up last night and I was just thinking about a new UI for managing these things, and then you just wake up and you're, yeah. But all of our team at the moment are getting really into it, so that. Yeah, so what you have is, if you go to structure AI, like configuration AI, you see assistants. And the assistant is like the consistent configuration for that chatbot. It helps you define the chatbot's personality, how it talks to you, who it's aiming at. And you can have more than one on your site, but here we have this Drupal agent assistant. This is the one that is going to be in Drupal CMS. And if you click and edit it, the first thing you see is a label and instructions. Now, quite long. I'm going to take you through it. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. But as I said with agents, they have instructions. And these instructions, you as an end user, in theory, you can go in and change it if you want. So there's a recipe that has the instructions that we think are good for Drupal CMS. But if you're creating your own agents, you can change those instructions. So what I'll do is I'll just go through some important things here. So you see, you really want to try and do things for the end user as much as possible. Early versions of this, the person would ask for some help and it would describe how to solve it for themselves. And the end user never knew that the agent could just do it. So we really made it clear, capital letters. We told the steps, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like you're describing it to an intern in your office. The people who are asking you to help them are described by the Drupal community as site builders with no Drupal experience. So we talk about that a lot. Please do not just tell them how to do it. Ask them if they want step-by-step instructions first. So we have this thing which is that we really want a review step. We want it to know. We want the end user to know that they could just ask, they could get help, they could do it. Once this same instruction, sometimes it's getting a user response, but sometimes the agents have done something, and they go back to the assistants to say, hey, this is all the stuff that we built. These instructions help the assistant tell the end user. So we say, sometimes you're going to get some information back, but we keep saying these people aren't Drupal experts. Remember, they're not Drupal experts. So whatever terminology they used, if they say category, don't keep it in the language that they're used to. And then we do things like, if you say, we explain to the agent, like some of them know Drupal really well, but we explain if they're using language that they're used to, like categories, we tell them that it could mean that they're going to be wanting a select list or taxonomy. And so there's all these little things that we inform the AI agents about how Drupal websites are built. The next setting on that page is the agents that you can get, and you can see here, like we could have the web form one that's not going to be in Drupal CMS, but it is available online. The views agent does exist. It does not have all the features of views, but it is there, so you can play around with it. There's some advanced settings. You probably don't want to go anywhere near this. This gets harder. But there is a pre-action prompt. There's all these kind of like system prompt things that do exist, and if you are a developer and really getting into AI, you can go in and start playing around with exactly how those things work to get it to really work the way you want. A lot of these things are stored in YAML, which means that like if they're not overridden, we can update it centrally. And when you update the site, the pre-prompt will get better. But you can override it. And if you want to play around with yourself, it's just upgrading will be harder. There's also, if you go to AI in settings, you can see the agent settings. And the way that we've got things now is we might refactor this at some point, but we've got an agent for all the different modules. We have a taxonomy agent, a views agent. They all have a structure of a single triage agent and then all the other agents that can do other things. With Swarm, we probably want to go deeper with that and have like a lot of triage agents. If you imagine views, there's a lot going on in views. It's going to get complicated. So you probably want to have an initial triage agent that then has another one, which is like adding fields, setting up relationships, doing filters, and have those triage agents separate and have them going back and forth. But right now, we've got a very simple structure. You've got the assistant. It goes to the first project manager triage agent, and then it goes to the other ones. So we're going to go and take a look at the field type agent. And what you see is a very simple thing. There's some metadata about it. Do you see it later? Yeah, the metadata is a description of what that does. This is important because the assistant does see this description, so we'll use this description to decide if it's going to use this agent. These are the inputs that it can take and the outputs that it gets. But you can also see underneath here usage instructions. So this is the configuration to tell the assistant how to use this. This is where you might want to put things in, like for the views agent, you might want to put in, if the person asks for a report, use views. If the person asks for this, use this. And then what you have is roles. Again, this is all, the way permissions work at the moment is it takes the permissions of the end user, but what we will have maybe by V1 or V1.1 is a system where the agents also use Drupal's permissions and roles. So right now, we've banned it from doing things that we don't want it to do. It can't delete anything right now, the AI agents. But the way we want to go in the future is that you'll have a permissions model for the agent. So you might say, you as a content editor are allowed to delete taxonomy terms, but the agent's not allowed to. So if you ask it to do that, it will say, I don't have permission, but I can tell you how to do it. And I think that will be good where you have some things that you feel safe that the person's doing it, but you don't yet trust AI to do that thing. And then if you click on prompt configuration, you'll then see a whole sea of sub-agents. So one of them is this triage agent that determines the initial tasks. And you can see here it's got, as I said, you can't see all the instructions yet, but you can see the possible actions it can take. It can, is a user trying to manipulate fields? Is it trying to ask a question about fields? Is the user trying to, this is a tool that is really good at giving suggestions to the user, like how to use Drupal well. Information, you need information from the end user. This is a tool where you can pull in more contextual information. But you can see extra instructions. It's blank now. But one thing is that there was some debate in the Drupal community. When I create taxonomy, do I want it to be find as you type, like tagging, or do I want to make it a select list where I have to see them? And I personally, I love the select lists, and everyone else apparently prefers tagging. So what we could do is we can decide in Drupal CMS what's our default. But if you decide when you have it on your site, you've got a way that you like to work, you can put it in the instructions for the assistants, but you can also put extra instructions into this agent. And this is something that sits on top of the prompts we've written. So if you update the site and it gets better, you update the agents later, these will stay with you, but you'll get like the behind the scenes prompt updated. And so we're kind of peppering that. There's all these places that a non-developer can shift and play around with how do they want the agents to work on your site? What is your way of doing things? If you click on age override and you see the YAML file, we're going to make it better, but this is now just YAML, so it's a bit harder to read, but you can see the possible actions for this one is can reorder or not reorder. This is the instructions. And so if you're a bit more advanced, you can go in, override the YAML and change it and really make these agents sing. So yeah, evaluating AI. One of the things I think is really important is this thing called evaluations of like how good are the agents working? And there's this question of like, why do we believe cars are safe? We've talked a lot about AI and some people have been nervous about it, but why do we believe cars are safe? Because they're actually terrifying. Like when you're sitting there in a car and somebody's cycling next to you and you're like, I just do this and they're gone. It's terrifying that we are allowed to do this. It's going to be one of these things that, like, in 1,000 years' time, people are going to be writing history books about how insane it was that we allowed just anyone, like, 14-year-old, 15, 16-year-olds can just, like, move these things around that have just so much power in them. Well, I would say there's two ways. We have accountability and we have tests. So we test people, we put them through a driving license beforehand, but also we hold people accountable. If they make mistakes, even if no consequences, if they're just driving according to not breaking the rules, we hold them accountable. And so I think these concepts of accountability and tests is how we do everything with safety, food safety, everything. And similarly, we want to apply the same thing to AI. So I talked a bit about this evaluating the delay repay thing. So this was the evaluation that we made. So you can see these are all runs, so different versions of the prompt, different versions of the configuration. And then it would go through all the human-made claims and what the humans decided and compare it to AI. If it got confused, it would escalate it to a human. So we've got the automation right there. And you can see here where AI said yes, accepted it, it was actually getting 100% right. 100% right is a bit scary. I think it would be nicer if it was like 99.999. So as we get bigger, I think we want to get that number down a little bit. This one here was about 90% when it said no. But if it says no, the person can appeal. So getting 100% there is not super important. It's just you don't want it to be too low because you don't want to have to rely on too many passengers appealing all the time. So yeah, that's sort of an evaluation there. Now with Drupal CMS, there's an evaluations module that we have that you can install, and there's a recipe to bring it on. This won't be shipped in Drupal CMS, it's used for helping us build it. But you can see now the chatbot has a little tick or negative, thumbs up, thumbs down. So as a person's using it, they can click thumb up, and we will then store a whole bunch of information about about what's happening, the history of the conversation, what the agents did, etc. So these are different ones. This one didn't go very well. It goes, I'm sorry, there was a mistake. This one went well. The last assistant is the AI. You're welcome. I'm glad I could help. So that person was obviously very happy. So we're going to take a look at that. And if you go and click view, you'll see these messages. And here they said, I'd like a second image field, but this time it's an image of the author's headshot. So you can make the second one, but with a different title to reflect this. And then there's all the different agents and what they've been doing. We haven't made this, cool, thanks. I haven't made this look amazing yet behind the scenes, but you can see a detailed output. Again, we're going to reformat this, but it does mean we can dig down and find out why it's gone wrong. Okay, I've just left it up here. I won't go into detail, but these are just general concepts about agents. So yeah, if you download the slides, you can see that. I mean, if you want to take a photo of this is just like the core concepts, but it is very much it's more techie stuff. Cool. So we've got 10 minutes left. I've got a little bit about the future. So we are planning on views agents, AI-powered experience builder, migrates. We've got a bunch of core features in the AI module which we could bring across. We've got AI search. So we made a Ask Drupal. It hasn't quite got there yet, but Ask Drupal where you could type questions and it would actually use the project browser to find you modules. Automators. So here's a really simple thing. So I said automators, they can just do like one thing versus agents. So we made a little automator here, which is style guide. So it's when you're writing content, it evaluates how good your content is according to style guide. And this style guide is really simple. You have to use the word poultry, never the word chicken. If you say chicken, it's 0 out of 10. If you say poultry, 10 out of 10. So that's a piece of content that's been evaluated. And the way you do it is you create a field called style guide. You edit it, and there's this little button on the field settings called Enable AI Automator. We're going to use LLMs. And then there's this prompt here, which is you're helping enforce the organization-wide style guide. The most and only thing that matters that chicken should always refer to as poultry. And then you give it some examples. And what that will do is that whenever anyone creates some content and they click save, it will do that. But you can then start putting into this prompt tokens. So we can have really complex chains where we had one person where they wanted to make it so that I could take a YouTube video of a podcast. One automator would go and download it directly. Another would transcribe it. Another would summarize it. Another would get key quotes. Another would put timestamps on those key quotes. Another would turn into LinkedIn posts. And then this was all content in Drupal. And it was all through automators going through these steps. So yeah, Freely Give is my company. There's a website there. We're always on Drupal.org Slack #AIs, where we spend most of our time. And you can see the project thing there. So actually, let me just show you one cool thing. So this is an example of where I want to go soon with evaluating agents. So you could see these steps. I just thought this was so cool. So I'm just going to quickly show this out. Road trip planning. It's another system for building using AI agents. And my dream is to bring this. So yeah, you started that first thing, and it starts finding all those other agents and building it all in React into this really cool system here. It's going to start showing you where it's done web searches and where it's searched for things, and then little chunks. And so, yeah, I've been exploring it with the people from QED 42, and we might, with Experience Builder being in React and a lot of more stuff moving to React, we should be able to start looking at trying to find ways of visualizing these agents better, like this. So I'll put that up. Yeah, any questions? Cool, we got one back there, one here, one there.
So from a country model perspective, my understanding is that I can use these as a framework to build my agent or assistants. Is there a way for a helper for testing that what I'm doing is right or wrong for the module and for the user?
Yeah, like there is. We're working on all that and improving those kind of things. But they're very, like if you think about those modules, like the agents for your module, they're very simple. The tools are just whatever it is that you want your module to be able to do. Within like half an hour of us releasing this stuff for Barcelona, somebody contributed a little one that could turn modules on or off. So if you know your module and you know the functions, it's not that hard to make a tool. We are moving towards a tools framework that Claude are pushing for. So we are starting to move to something that has to be structured more consistently. But the core concepts are not that complicated. And then the agents, they just are instructions that you write. So the things that you can get wrong are very limited. The hard part is what should those instructions be? In the same way that when you do UI, you have to think about like, how does a human go through all the steps to do the things in your module, like I said with views. You have to do the same thing with these AI agents and the triage and project management stuff. Like do I think about this first, then this and this? We've got something called the Explorer, AI Explorers. There's a bunch of explorers for testing everything. So you just like a prompt explorer that you can put in a prompt and it gives you a response to check that you've got a connection. There's an image one for the ones that generate images, but there's also an agent explorer. So there is a system in there for when you create your agent, you can just test that agent on its own and see what it is. And we're hoping to build more and more testing frameworks. The one that I was dreaming about was one where you could just have a list of model prompts and we could test really basic things like, did it create a taxonomy? Because it's very hard to test these things perfectly because it's not deterministic. They'll give you a different list of taxonomy each time you do it. But you can test, does this prompt produce a taxonomy at all? So we're kind of working on this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff in the open source community generally. But the agent stuff is so new that there isn't that much that is testing agents specifically. And it is really nice to have it in Drupal because then it can know loads about how the website works. So yeah.
Thank you.
But my dream is one where instead of us building these agents, almost every Drupal module, I feel like the future will be one where every Drupal module has an agent linked to it, because agents are mostly just really good documentation. If you have really good documentation, you essentially have an agent. If it's really easy to understand how to use your functions, then you have a tool. So like I think that would be my dream, is that gradually more and more of Drupal.org is sort of enhanced with agents.
So, we want to add like agents into the individual Drupal sites or projects, right? So Drupal.org itself is built on top of Drupal. So are we thinking to integrate AI agents there as well, so that it can like improve dramatically the experience of using the Drupal website and Drupal issue queues and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. I have got nothing to announce, but I mean, there's so many ideas of that, how cool that could be, you know.
Yeah, I think we were hoping to get something about it, and if it happens, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
thank you for the talk, very interesting. I have one client in mind. We built an kind of an intranet platform for, and they have a lot of how-tos, a lot of sensitive information that is only meant for people that are allowed access to that
Yep.
platform. And search is always a problem because search is never good enough.
Yep.
So I'm looking at AI to help us improve the search functionality. The problem though is, what can I tell this client about the data remaining in their platform and not being fed to AI, because that data can never end up in ChatGPT, for example.
So just two things about the AI search module. There's a couple of approaches. You can have it so that you do AI search, you get a bunch of chunks of data, you pass it to an LLM, and the LLM answers, and that can hallucinate. But one thing that's really cool is we have this feature called like boost of AI. So if you have a traditional search API, you're using Solid to search for something, you can set up this RAG, it's called RAG database search stuff, and you click this button, boost of AI. And what it will do is when you're typing something in, it will do a mix of traditional exact matching search and this semantic AI search that understands things and blend them together. But it's still in your view or whatever you've done, so it's not hallucinating, it just gives you results that are more relevant to the thing you asked for. We had one example of like products. So one product was like, this product is ethically made, and the other one said, this product, we pay our workers a fair wage. And with traditional search, it would get the first one, but with the semantic thing where you click boost, you'd say, I want ethical products, and it would know for both because it understood the concepts. So that, I think there's a bunch of things there in the AI search module. Now, going back to your privacy thing, because we've got this abstraction layer, you can choose the models you want to use. So you could go for OpenAI and Claude, or which obviously in your case you wouldn't want to do because that's an external service. You can also use providers that you might trust like AWS Bedrock, so we've done the integration there, or Azure or Vertex. So a lot of these organizations still trust to store a lot of their data and interact with like Amazon stuff. And so that's one way. You can also go for a self-hosted model. So there's these open source models like Llama, Gemma by Google, Llamas by Facebook or Meta. There's Mistral, which is really good if you're for non-English speaking, for like particularly French. I think French and Spanish, I think, are particularly good in Mistral. And they are models that you can put on your own server. So now it's all completely sovereign. And we've got a provider called Ollama, and Ollama is the thing that bridges between Drupal and that model. One thing we're also exploring is with the chatbot. We're going to hopefully this or next week improve it with a proper JavaScript-y chatbot, something called Deep Chat. And it has the functionality to load the model in your browser. So then when you're using it, it's not even on the external server. The LLM stuff is all sat on your browser and very, very safe in some sense because it's on your browsers, as long as your computer is safe, which is probably not always going to be true. What we're finding is these big, expensive models are really good for a lot of situations, but these smaller open source models, fine-tuning, as I said earlier, was in the past, I used to tell people don't bother. I'm now hearing that if you get these small open source models and train them with like 100 pieces of data, they get quite good at doing really specific things. So they won't know everything about the world. They don't have as much knowledge as ChatGPT does. But if you're trying to make those agents do a very specific task, you could train a little custom, you can use like Microsoft Phi or Gemma and train it to do just that one thing. And these are small. So one, you could run it on a laptop without a graphics card or maybe in the browser. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening to make it so that you can have much safer AI. I still think the Bedrock approach is a really good one because they do a lot of security stuff, and most people who, however secure it is, they will trust that. But this sovereign AI is something that you can explore.
We've got time for one more question. If you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your sharing. So I'm wondering if localizing the prompt, for example, for the triage agent, or the later example you show for the automator, will those prompt will be localizable, translatable, because those are communication points for the users.
Yeah.
Is it currently available, or is it already in the queue?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest way is that in the instructions that I've done, you could just say, give your answer in French or Chinese or something. You can just ask it to. Because the final step of going back and forth is with this LLM. In the instructions, you can ask it to do whatever you want it to do. You can ask it to speak in, in poetry. So there's a lot that we could do with localization at that level. Now, I think we still want to explore to what degree, like in this world, it will start off in your language, and then everything else is happening in English, and then the final step is in your language again. To what degree will that work compared to do we actually need to translate all of the prompts to another language? I don't know the answer yet. The other thing is that the models can technically speak any language, but in reality, different models are better at different languages. So, ChatGPT is really good at English, but Mistral gets better at other European languages, and there's a few Chinese models that are coming out that are better at Chinese than ChatGPT is, even though it can do it. So localization is going to be something where, with it as it is now, there's a simple solution, which is you just tell it to do that. Then we can do more interesting stuff with like integrating with the standard like Drupal localization tools. And then maybe we will find gains from translating all of the instructions into different languages. Yeah. Cool, well, thanks a lot for being here. I'm gonna be around. As I said, I love talking about AI. I'm just obsessed with it. So if you come up to me and want to talk about AI, I'm basically always gonna be happy to do that. So yeah, if you've got any other questions, give me a shout. There's my details. If you want to work with Freely Give and you've got your own proof of concepts you want to do, feel free to reach out to me. And if you want to help with Drupal CMS, we're going to be, I'm going to be around on Contribution Day tomorrow, but we're also on Slack. There's loads of things that people can help us out with, both now and sort of cool futuristic things. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.